about to hear a conversation I had with Danny, and it was fantastic. It was a blast speaking with him, and I'm sure you'll feel the same. So, what we spoke about was living life in autopilot mode, knowing what not to do, your ability to operate through chaotic situations, recognizing hard truths of life, and switching from consumer to creator. There's much more that we spoke about, but those are just a few of the top topics that we spoke about. And if you're new to the podcast, I do a few styles of episodes. Today is a conversation with another like-minded individual who I found interesting. And I do solo rants, which are shorter. They're like 15 to 20 minutes. Today's conversation will be about an hour. And on those solo rants, what I'm doing is expressing my reminders to myself, expressing my inner dialogue, hoping that it will be valuable to you. And the third style of episode that I'm looking forward to starting, once I get some questions, topics, you guys can send those into me at askjustin@myyahoo.com. And once I get questions and topics, I will address them in tweets, threads, videos, and podcast episodes. So I appreciate you. Enjoy the conversation.
And so my wife travels a lot for work, but that's her business. It's the nature of her job. And we're a team, and we've always felt that way and thought if we're going to bring children into this world, we have to show our kids that we're a team and show that united front. And I'm a firm believer in that. And I think in those moments when it's difficult, or like when the kid throws up on you, when you think you're home free and you've got a little bit of downtime for the night, and then you got another half hour of bath and cleaning in front of you, sometimes sometimes that may not be the most fun, but but then but it all works out in the end. I think it's just as long as we're all committed to the same goal of raising good people, trying to live a good life, trying to have a little fun along the way, like in addition to the work. I think it's okay.
Right. I like the point of what is the work or the effort going to. And when we're speaking on such an important reasoning or a topic like raising strong and intelligent, good character individuals,
Hmm.
then hey, sometimes it's so obvious what your priority is. And hey, it is nice to relax and to not have to do extra work, but we choose our sacrifices carefully, and being the best parent you can be, I'm sure it's worth it to you.
For sure. Well, I think if we're lucky, we choose our sacrifices carefully. I think way too many people are not very intentional about that. They're not intentional about the sacrifices they're making. They don't think about the trade-offs that they are making in their lives, whether it's personally or professionally, or even in social, kind of standards as well. I think, I don't know. I think life changed for me when I figured out what my priorities were, right? Because I think until then, I kind of followed the crowd. I did what I thought I should be doing. I followed the goals that sounded good or that looked good on paper, that I thought someone like me should be chasing after. And it was only after I really spent some time ruminating on these topics about what really mattered to me and why, that's when things began to really change for me. And unfortunately, well, perhaps fortunately and unfortunately, it came that period of reflection came from a time of just intense life change. I had my second child, and my father died 10 days later. And then, and so driving back from his funeral, a lot of these, themes of uh, legacy and life and the measure of our days, and kind of going back to that famous Steve Jobs speech that everyone references from his Stanford commencement speech about, if this is my last day, am what I am doing today what I would want to be doing? And so I think I started really thinking about those themes, and in that car ride, and to which I've, excuse me, I've even written about it several times. That car ride is where I kind of really, that drum beat, that ticking of the clock really became very loud to me, or it seemed very loud to me. And by the time I got done with that 12-hour car ride, I had not a whole new outreach, but a whole new, perhaps, determination on how I was going to spend my time and to what end that was going to be. And really spent, and I think since that really drive, really determining on what fired me up, on what gave me the most joy, on what really was important to me to accomplish, what I wanted to be written on that tombstone someday. I think has really guided me in a lot better way since that. And so, uh, long ramble there on a short thing, but I think far too few people really spend that time determining on what am I trading my time for, and is what I'm going to get for it, if anything, going to be worth it to me, or worth what I think it is.
Right. The meaning behind what we're doing is such a determining factor in the quality of our performance. And
Absolutely.
when you've taken that awareness or spotlight and focused it on the fact that your parent has passed away, and that completely emphasizes that life is not forever. And with this understanding that, well, time is going to pass no matter what, so I might as well focus on things that are furthering my future, or at least going to make me feel good about myself.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's I like talking on practical terms as along with abstract terms, but the rock bottom or the intense, well, these are two different ideas, but your intense life change, that's one way that we are pushed into making changes,
Yeah.
realizing that, okay, I am not mad or upset with things right now, but that doesn't mean I can't make some adjustments to
Sure.
make everything a bit more efficient. And there's also that rock bottom. For me, I wasn't on the streets addicted to cocaine and heroin, but I was in my home, sheltered, had good food, but my psychological state of being was terrible.
Hmm.
I felt so helpless and
I don't know.
hopeless, and
Yeah.
just I didn't have meaning. That's kind of what I would get at. In that
Yeah.
that rock bottom, what I would consider a rock bottom is what made me look at myself and what I'm doing each day. And that's where everything began to change. When
Yeah.
you get detailed, you pay attention to what am I doing each day.
Hmm. Exactly. Um, yeah, and that powerful moment, that moment in the mirror, because I had something similar to that. That was a little before uh, the birth of my child and my father passing away. It was kind of the pre-work that went into it. Was when COVID hit, and we got sent to work from home for my job, and it was an adjustment. And so having our kid home, and my wife was pregnant, and it was one of those moments I look back on now. And again, after writing for 500 days, I wrote on this time and again. But there was, and just to talk about the story, but just explicitly, my oldest son was playing with some blocks on the ground, and he's a little boy. He's smashing them together, making a racket. And I was tired. I'd stayed up too late the night before, um, you know, playing PlayStation, drinking beers and stuff like that. I was just not feeling so great. And I remember he's hitting these blocks together, and I told him, "Hey, can you just keep those blocks down?" And immediately I stopped. I felt so ashamed and felt like such a monster and felt like such a different version of myself than I wanted to know. And I, at that moment, I got up and went and looked at that mirror. So I talk about that kind of cliche moment in the mirror, but that happened like in the downstairs bathroom right behind me here. I mean, that happened. And I, kind of looked at myself, splashed some water on my face, and said, "Is this what you're going for? Is this who you're trying to become? You know, who are you becoming? Because it doesn't, because this reflection is not the one that I think you hoped for." And I think in that moment, I took a picture of myself and I said, "This is the person that I'll never be again today." And I had been eating a terrible diet, not exercising, just staying up late, spending sinking hours into video games and drinking beers, late into the night. It was just, I mean, just all the things you're not supposed to do, all the things you're not supposed to do, and it all came to a head in that moment. I went for, I'll call it a run. It wasn't a run. It was a soft jog that afternoon, but that was day one, and day one became day two, and so on and so forth. And so, like in that moment, I resolved to, eat a better diet. I lost like 55 pounds, quit drinking, and so all these kind of behaviors kind of stacked on top of that one decision moment. And so, hearing other people talk about that, man, that like speaks to me and my heart, because I had that moment too, and it probably saved my life.
It the idea of compounding is super important or attractive to
Mm,
me, and it's built on this idea that everything you just mentioned makes so much sense to me, because we there's just a slippery slope in life, and when you begin to do the actions that keep you at a lower vibration or a poor
mm-hmm.
mood. Like, I am so focused on the basic fundamentals, everything you just mentioned, the exercise, the nutrition, your sleep. Are you playing too much video games? Or a better way to phrase that is your time sinks.
Yeah,
Because I don't want to act as if we're saints either.
yeah, you
Humans
can't
do.
grind all the time. Yeah, you can't grind all the time.
Exactly. And we need to create a healthy balance of earned relaxation.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
right.
Earned relaxation. That's a good term. I like that. I'm gonna write that down.
I appreciate that. There's just another term that I really love is voluntary suffering, choosing to, because it's just the option. If we commit to putting ourselves through a workout, which sure, it's hard. It's so much better than walking into a workout with this victim mindset, like, oh, I have to work out right now. No, you get to work out. You have
Hmm.
the opportunity to take care of your body, which therefore raises your mood. And when
Coming
you
from a place of gratitude. Yeah,
right, and it's these simple but
I like it.
overlooked small steps that, like there's fitness coaches and they're powerful, but when you really can unravel what fitness does for the rest of your life, I think that's more powerful than just being a independent fitness coach. But at the
Yeah.
same time, the, hey, any individual who's looking to help others, I'm a huge fan of. So I definitely got off topic, but there's a lot of important areas that we can touch on. So really, we could take it wherever you want to go.
Wow. Well, I mean, yeah, Justin. So I think even when we kind of came in, we kind of just jumped right into it, right? I mean, didn't really even really say anything. So I don't know. I mean, was there anything specific? I think even that precipitated the conversation even in the first place.
When I look for potential people that I'm interested in speaking with, I'm not looking for anything specific, just this general idea of an individual who is improving incrementally. And
Gotcha.
the fact that you're writing, it spurred my curiosity
Hmm.
immediately. Well, that means he's working on himself, because people who write and read and are intentional with their time, they have an aim. They're looking to be better. So I guess I'm you gave me a great introduction into that intense life change in the moment. But tell me a little bit more about if there's any other periods of your life that really indicated you had work to do.
Mm, okay. Yeah, and so I mean, honestly, I think just really these last 30 months really since really March 2020, since the pandemic, it really it really changed things for a lot of people in a lot of ways. And fortunately for me, I was one of the people that it didn't negatively affect health wise so much in that, but it gave me almost the time to do that self-reflection, to gain that self-awareness. And so I think that moment in the mirror started that process, and becoming healthy in body, it took time. It took probably 6 or 7 months to lose the weight. And but every day, of course, if you've ever gone through any big physical transformation, you know that every day as you're feeling better, your mind sharpens, because strong in body, strong in mind. That's an old cliche, but we've been saying it for thousands of years for a good reason. And so as I became healthier physically, I became healthier mentally and emotionally. And so when it came to those big life changes, like having a second child and the death of my father, I was much better equipped to handle those changes. I was much more resilient. I could, and also if I was feeling down or if I was feeling stressed out, I could strap on my shoes and go for a run. And sunshine and fresh air will heal a lot of will do a lot of things. And in terms of, for me, I don't know how it is for other people out there, but when you're out of shape, running is the most horrible thing in the world. When you're in shape, it is the most powerful thing in the world, because it's almost meditative for me. I find that I zone out after about a mile, and it's just my mind kind of just sorts things out. And that if you don't find the answers to your problems after an hour long run, you're not getting them, kind of thing. And so it always, so having that backbone allowed me to handle these things in a much healthier way, and probably allowed me to step outside of these significant life events and look at them more objectively instead of in a more emotional way, and say, okay, how does this affect me moving forward, and how do I handle this, and who do I want to be, and and how does this change me, or how should it change me, maybe is the better question. And then I think the last piece of that puzzle was starting the writing project. And it was one of these things. I had been following a couple of fintech folks on Twitter. One of them was a guy named Dickie Bush. Don't know if you're familiar with him.
I haven't heard of him.
Okay. So he and this guy, Nicholas Cole, started this program, Ship 30 for 30, which is all about writing online. And so it was a couple cohorts in, and I'd kind of been following them from outside the circle, and I saw kind of what you spoke of. I saw transformations starting to happen to people, and that to me said sent a very powerful message that what they were doing there was interesting enough to get me to take a look at it. And so, it was one of these things where it's probably the same thing anyone thinks about when they're going to buy an expensive product that they're not sure about. I sat there and looked at the landing page of this digital writing cohort program, and I thought, with my credit card information in, and not hitting sign me up, because I was like, I don't need a program to tell me to write. I don't need a program to tell me that I can do this myself. Well, it turns out I was wrong. And so I signed up anyway, and it was an amazing experience. I mean, I don't, I mean, I've become so much of an evangelist for daily journaling or self-expression or whatever we can do to tap into the creative sides of ourselves, because that's where we start finding the answers about what motivates us and what fires us up and what really, and those things that if we're lucky enough to die peacefully one day, those are the things we're going to, be thinking about in those final moments, the things which really made us, gave us the most joy. And so starting this writing project was amazing, because I was so afraid to share myself with the world, because I thought it had to be perfect. I thought everything that I put out there had to be the end all be all. I thought it had to be a grand thesis for everything that I produced. And the day before publishing day one of the leaders of the cohort says, I don't mean to be mean about this, but if you're afraid of hitting the publish button tomorrow, you shouldn't be, because no one is reading anyway. And it and while some people might have taken that the wrong way, to me it was exactly the kind of hard truth I needed to hear. Because and it was like Voltaire said, that man is free the moment he wishes to be. And I realized in that moment that the stakes were so low, and that the only thing I was going to lose out on was not going for something like this, right? And I know that's kind of another cliche, but I feel like when people start going through things in their lives, they start saying these things. It's weird how that goes. But in day one publishing, I woke up at 5 a.m. I already had the essay written. I hit publish, and I waited for the adulation to roll in. I mean, it was I was that vain and ego driven and whatever else still. I mean, even after these changes and these ego checks along the way, I still thought that way. It was amazing. On day two, I was confused why I hadn't been contacted for a Pulitzer yet, and I was a bit confused about that. And so I said, well, I better keep writing. And so, because if it didn't happen on day one, maybe I have to keep going and see where. Well, the program ends at 30 days. So it's ship 30 for 30. So you write 30 essays in 30 days and post them for the world to see. And along the way, I realized so many things. I thought I was going to be this optimism guru, kind of like Zig Ziglar, some crazy idea like that, or some new Brian Tracy. I mean, some of these optimism writers. I seriously thought that was going to be me. And about 20 days in, I realized I am writing played out tropes that have been of paths that have been tread by people who are far more eloquent and will always be far better writers than I'll ever hope to be. And it was only kind of then when I started to lean into what made my life unique or more interesting. I was like, I'm kind of a normal guy with 2 kids in Ohio, trying to get promoted, trying to be a good dad, trying to get good at golf, trying to write some things. And so when it's really when I kind of just said, I'm going to write about the interesting things that happened to me, and the things which are humbling, the things which make me laugh, and the things that check me, I guess, or change my perspective. And that's when that project really started taking off, and it started to resonate with other people. And I started to have different conversations with people, because it wasn't just like, hey, cool essay, or hey, nice. It was, wow, this speaks to me as a person, as a parent, as someone who's unsure of where their career is going, and et cetera, et cetera. And so I thought at 30 days that it was an interesting experience, but it was kind of like the X-Files. I felt the answers were out there. And so I thought, I'm going to write for 500 straight days and see what happens. And so I did that. I just finished 500 days 2 weeks ago. So it was, I mean, the only words to describe it, it was an absolute life-changing project. So I've been talking a lot. I'll pause there for a second.
How many how many hours a day were you writing over that span?
It was it varied very much. And so having young kids, having a job, and in that time, the wildest the wildest stuff started happening though, Justin. I mean, it was, so I started writing, and I started writing every day. And then all of a sudden I started getting a lot better at my job. And I work in sales, and all of a sudden that daily focus and daily discipline that came along with writing, editing, and publishing every day really propelled that. And so at first it did take a while. It probably took an hour a day, maybe more, because again, I would agonize about what I was saying, and I wasn't even writing well. It was bad structure. It was really kind of badly formatted even. And at the end, at 500 days, I would sit down with a blank page without any idea of what I'd write about. I'd write a essay, soup to nuts, in 20 minutes, and post it and be done with it, and wouldn't think twice about it. And so the skill definitely does develop in terms of writing quickly and coherently. That definitely happened over a year and a half. But I mean, but the other stuff that happened along the way was the crazy thing. So I started getting a lot better at my job. My sales hockey stick. I started, I mean, just it was just that little bit of discipline just really started to bleed over into other aspects of my life. I started getting, like I said, started getting better at my job. Became a
Yeah.
more present parent. I mean, writing about my kids every day and writing about what I wanted for their life and what I wanted them to experience made me a lot more present and about in their lives. And so I quit picking up the phone so much, or or at the end of the workday I closed the laptop and it was time to play on the floor with the time to play on the floor with the little boys, or it was time to close and go to a playground or something. We're not taking the work phone with us. And so in that time, my relationship with with my children grew deeper and more meaningful. And I realized that I hadn't even realized before, that they really became my enduring source of joy and hope, you know, for the world, really. And in that time, becoming a more present father, I became a more present husband, too. I, you know, I, I, I was more communicative in our relationship with my wife, which I always struggled with. And maybe that's more of a man thing, but I always struggled to communicate my feelings or my expectations or my thoughts. But writing every day helped distill all those things and helped me bring those into conversation in a much better way than just shrugging it off or grunting or just saying I'm fine until I had a blow up, or until my temper got the best of me, every, once every month or something. And so became a better, father, became a better husband as well. And then, in the time that I was writing every day, I became so much more gracious about things in my life. I realized how lucky I was and how fortunate I was. And so I started reaching back out to, friends that or people that had always been valuable to me, that I never told them how valuable they were to me. Why didn't I tell them that? Writing every day helped me feel that gratitude, and it helped me propel that into the world. And so, I mean, even just sitting here talking about it, I'm getting a little like, kind of like emotional just thinking about that project. And so, I mean, just all these positive changes. And so you talk about stacking behaviors and how one good thing begets another. That writing, well, getting into shape, figuring out what I wanted, and then injecting a little bit of focus and discipline into the mixture by daily writing helped me propel my goals across the board. And it was an amazing growth period, just an incredible time.
Right. And I want anyone who's listening, honestly, to rewind that, or some way, somehow you have to go through everything Danny just said again, because throughout that period that you've been talking, there were so many principles or rules, ideas that you said that are just so true. And they're universal truths that are applicable to every single human being. See, I know I come across the fact that humans are different. We have different personality traits, and our personal experiences have been indiv- they've been specific to the individual. So therefore,
Mm-hmm.
the way that we perceive reality could be completely different. But
Sure. Yeah.
what this really comes down to is, number one, you eat the right food and you exercise, that's going to create this idea that maybe you could create the future in a way that you're designing it. Maybe you could actually develop who you want to become
Yeah.
specifically. But if you don't exercise and eat the right food, I don't even think that those thoughts come into your head. And so that's kind of a starting point. And then from there, we can do these more psychological activities. When you read, you consume great information that spurs great thoughts. When you write, you're decluttering your very cluttered mind
Exactly.
and becoming more in tune with your emotions and feelings. So by
Yeah.
reading and writing, I'll even toss meditating in there. It's just another way to understand yourself better. When we
Mhm.
understand ourselves better, you can communicate better. And I think that's what you were getting at with your wife. You by you going through all this effort to write and declutter your thoughts, you're clarifying the way you feel. And I
Exactly.
don't know if, well, I've definitely struggled with confidence before as a man. Like Jordan Peterson says this a lot. Like we look at woman as this eternal judge, and we kind of portray this fantasy of what we think about them on, on them before we even understand. But what I'm trying to articulate is that the woman is the judge of man. We want to please and impress woman. So if we're not in tune with our emotions, understanding our self-image and how we're feeling internally, it becomes very challenging to have those real authentic conversations because we don't even know how we are feeling about
Yeah.
ourselves. So
Exactly. Yeah.
and by writing and reading and meditating, I've and it's a big combination of things though. I don't think there's any one.
Yeah. It's not just one thing, it's a lot of things.
Right.
And they're, I don't know, like, and one way to kind of think about, is I always, I've kind of boiled it down to kind of these base concepts, right? And I think is exactly what you touched on. When you treat yourself well, that's kind of the base layer. Is if your inputs are healthy, it allows you to kind of get to that second stage of that psychological mental evaluation examination, taking care of your mental health aspect. I mean, like, if you're not healthy in body, you cannot focus on being healthy in mind either. It's just, one thing begets the next. And then once you take care of that mental aspect of yourself, then the next step up, it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy in a way. Take care of your physical needs, then your emotional, your psychological needs, and then your kind of emotional needs. And once we get exactly to what you say, in tune with that, then we can tap into those higher level aspirations, that self actualization at the top, that really, that really drives different kinds of results in our life. And so I think you're exactly right. And they're not cumulative, these behaviors, they're multiplicative. And one builds upon the next. And if we're negligent in one, it detracts from our ability to build that castle. It detracts from our ability to have that pyramid as solid as it could be. And yeah, unfortunately, it took me a really long time to live something that I fundamentally knew. I wish I was one of those people that was wise enough to really learn from the mistakes of others, but unfortunately, it seems like I'm kind of one of the ones that has to go through it myself sometimes. So, oh well, so it goes.
Right. And I personally, there's been some things where, okay, I see that I can learn from
Hmm.
others. And then there's other more detailed and nuanced experiences that you have to go through yourself. Um, so the example that I could learn from someone else was my dad did not have a good I don't want to say life because he's still here, but so far his life has not been great. And I learned from him what not to do.
Hmm.
The common things. When you are putting in horrible things into your system, that's what you're going to put out. And he
Yeah.
was running from reality with substances. And you're not, you're a human being, but you're so far from your highest self when you're addicted to substances, when you have these beliefs about the world that don't
Yeah.
serve you. And
Hmm.
so you can learn from extremes. I think the extreme
Yeah.
examples are very educational. And then
Sure.
the nuance within a specific niche or a field, that's when you really have to use that trial and error or pay for a specific mentor. I love what you did by investing in yourself. I had a big it was challenging for me to invest in myself in the past. I looked at
Yeah.
courses as just not the best use of my money. But then I came to realize, okay, if I've consumed so much of a person's content and I feel their energy, like their authenticity is beaming through the screen into my mind, that just hooks me. When I
Hmm.
trust the person, you buy when you trust people. And
Sure. Yeah.
that's what I'm doing through the podcast and through everything that I put out. My sole aim is that natural authenticity. You definitely mentioned something about this earlier, where you can simply feel that someone knows themselves or that they are operating from their authentic self, not any sort
Hmm.
of mask or trying to
Yeah.
portray something. And I I know we've touched on a lot of topics so far, but something that I do want to mention is the idea of the hard truths. When you said that, my eyes lit up because it's just a fact. If you are not taking care of your physical health, it's your mind will not be
Yeah.
operating at its max capacity. And it's very interesting to me when I see individuals who are wealthy or have created a audience and they're in horrible shape. It is impressive and blows my mind at the same time because I don't know how they do that. I don't
Yeah.
understand.
I wouldn't be able to do it either. I'd be, yeah, yeah.
And it's I I'm all about making it easy or as easy as possible to operate at our high standards.
Hmm.
And that leads me to wonder, what are some of the routines or structures that you've implemented in your life that keep you even keel, that make sure you don't go too high or too low?
Yeah. I mean, probably the easiest thing would be my children, just because there there are these moments where I will feel that things are going my way. Like I am doing, like I had a good day at work, or had something else that was successful, or even had a good round of golf, or or had a good round of disc golf, or like something as silly as that, and I'll feel like I am making progress in areas, and then kind of like I said in the beginning of the podcast, like I will think I'm home free, like putting the kids to sleep, and then one of them will like throw up on me or something, and it's just this moment where you're just like, okay, you're the king of the what world? You're like, you're king of what world exactly? Yeah, bro. Like, go get your mop. Like that's what you got to do. And so, I mean, I think, but in terms of routines, I'm in. So part of that writing process, and that getting better at my job, helped me get an opportunity to move into a leadership role at work, which is something I always wanted to do. And so I think the routines to keep me even now managing a team at work, that is an absolutely humbling experience. And what is wild is I used to think on the other side of management that I would move into that role and and that would be the answer. I'd then have all the answers. And it's been the complete opposite experience. I have found out that I'm completely clueless, and so it has injected a entire new, just massive amount of imposter syndrome into my life. And so what's fun and so the what's interesting, but I think the writing every day filters into that, because uh in terms of things that keep us even, that was something that was very, very good to keep me on an even keel. And so there would be a day where I would write something and I'd feel good about it and it would be well received. I'd get those nice little dopamine hits from people smashing the like button and commenting and retweeting and having a cool conversation around something I wrote. I thought that was very cool. And then the next day I'd be like, okay, time to double down on this idea. And I'd spend twice as much time on it, twice as much effort, expend a lot of emotional capital writing something, and I would publish it to crickets. Just absolute crickets. No one would read it, no one would care. I mean, the deafening crickets of the internet's indifference, right? I mean, and so that's kind of a check moment too, where it's kind of like, well, I could write out a single tweet that's a single sentence and it will get a lot of engagement, and I will spend time writing something that to me is great, and it will not even be a blip on anyone else's radar because it doesn't speak to them. It's not relevant to them. It's not for them even. It's and so I think those types of things were easy. But then also just going back to um, the responsibility aspect, the self responsibility aspect. In that I let my and I always think about it whenever I'm being lazy in terms of the running or like whatever else, just kind of the reminder that, hey, you went to the wilderness once before. Do you want to go back to that point? I thought you said you weren't going to be that person again. And so just the reminder of that person. I kept that picture of that person, who was looking back in the mirror that day. And I was serious when I said I wasn't going back to that person, because that person was moving further away from the things that were important to me.
I like that you mentioned reminding yourself. It's not that you don't know what to do, but sometimes we forget and we need to be reminded.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that moment that you looked in the mirror and completely understood where you don't want to go, who you don't want to be, that can be such a strong force for you pursuing your higher self or your better self, and therefore doing the daily actions that create that person.
Mm-hmm.
I I liked that you brought up the kids as this humbling factor. See, I have huge ambitions and huge goals to influence millions, to become financially free, yada yada. But
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking to myself one day while I was picking up my dog's shit in the backyard, I'm still going to be doing this when I have millions
Yep.
of dollars and when I've changed millions of lives.
Yeah,
I
your
will
dog's not
never.
going to care.
Exactly right. The dog does not care about my materialistic accomplishments.
Yeah, still got to
And
pick up the shit.
and having that understanding that that's how life is, it's helpful, because my younger self, my high school self, thought life would be easy. I would create an easy life
Mm.
once I got the money, the girl, and the car.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of these rich people, and I don't want to say a lot because I'm now realizing most wealthy people have done a large amount of self-development, and their internal state
Mm-hmm.
reflects their external
Yeah.
state. But I know there are some financially free people who are running from reality because they didn't do the inner work. They
Yeah.
didn't get to understand themselves, and they don't have fulfillment or meaning. They just got, let's say, someone who was dancing on TikTok, no meaning or fulfillment, but they got a bunch of money from that. It doesn't fix your life. Money is such
Yeah.
a great tool. It's so amazing, but
Great
you
tool.
you need
But
internal
yeah.
solutions for internal problems.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and then in terms of the keeping score factor as well, I mean, money is an absolute essential, and anyone who says so doesn't have any. And so, there's that. And so I'm certainly a big believer in that, and in self development, and also in self development in order to be rewarded for it. That's part of my agenda as well, and I think that I think that's okay. There's nothing wrong with wanting to get reward from what you produce. That is the way of the world. I think there are a lot of people, and especially in the United States, and maybe it's just a part of our culture or something, but there are a lot of folks that's the only way they keep score, though. They don't know any other way to keep score than just the bank account or the stuff or the house or whatever else. And what worries me is that I know some of these folks, and what about when they're older? What about later on in life? I hope those things bring them comfort. I hope those things bring them the aspects of self actualization that they seek. And then I think you're right. I think some people, maybe it's an easy way to keep score. Like maybe it's, I don't want to say it's lazy, because there's certainly nothing lazy about making money, but I mean, for me, I want all the stuff. I want all of it, though. I don't want to be wealthy and have my kids hate me, when I grow up, And so, I mean, which there are a lot of people out there who have figured it out, right? There are a lot of people who have figured out the balance of how to get what they want out of the professions that they choose, and they are as involved as they want to be with their families, and they get as much out of that as they
Mm.
choose or as they want to get out of that. They are not a slave to their jobs, or something like that. Like you hear the term golden handcuffs. That's the saddest thing in the world, right? That you have to stay in a high powered job so that you can afford like this in kind of crazy lifestyle. I mean, great, yes, good, but again, at what cost though
Hmm.
for everything? But and so that's a lot of rambling just to talk about that there are people out there who have figured out the code to get it all, and that's what I want. I want that too, because it's achievable and it's worth working towards. I think being one of those people is worth my time and effort, trying to become one of those people who has figured out or at least the major things to me. Um, you know, Good father, good husband, good citizen, good colleague, good family member, good friend. And just kind of running down the list. The things that are important to me. I can become the person that is capable in all of those realms. We all could be. We can all become capable in the things that are important to us.
That's a great message. And really what I try to get across to people is you have the power to create your life according to what you want, but
Yes.
it it will never happen by accident. These
Nope.
people who you're speaking of, who have designed a balanced life where they have multiple domains that are fulfilling their needs, they did it on purpose. They created structure. They rewired their beliefs, had a vision, at
And they're
least.
clear about what they wanted.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You get
And went out
clear,
and got it.
you have a clear vision. That's the first step to creating something. But how
Absolutely.
do you make a clear vision? You have to, I don't know, maybe start with what you don't want. That helped me a lot. Where do I
Yeah.
not
Working
want to be?
backwards. Sure.
And
I
And
mean, I kind of did that with that moment in the mirror. That person in the mirror, that person was going to have a heart attack in 10 years. Like I saw the ghost of Christmas future in that mirror. I said, yeah, you could be that person. You want to be a sad statistic, or do you want to be someone who has a wonderful life with your kids that they grow up, telling stories about their dad forever? Do you want to be that person, or do you want to be the one that dies of a heart attack in a few years? Because you can choose.
you can choose that. That's a great idea for people to understand. You have a choice. Your choice is
Mm-hmm.
this. It's hard to be broke and it's hard to be rich. It's hard to be intelligent and it's hard to be dumb. It's hard to be rude to people and it's also hard to keep your cool and be kind to people. But clearly there is a better hard for each individual to choose. And
Love that.
that's
Choose your hard better.
choose your hard. Like that's what I keep stapled in my mind. I wake up 3 a.m. every day. Gym opens at 5. So I write before I go to the gym. That writing has is becoming something that I see myself doing much more. Right now,
It's a
I'm
superpower.
I'm doing probably 2 hours or 3 hours a week for my weekly newsletter. But
Hmm.
point is, by having this morning structure and then I go to the gym, it's hard every single time I work out. It's challenging, but I get stronger. I see my body
Hmm.
get stronger, and I'd rather exert effort to be strong and healthy than to exert effort to walk up the stairs because
Yeah.
I'm a super overweight. Like, we all
Yeah.
have
You
that
can go
choice.
either way. Exactly. We can choose that. We can choose either version of ourselves. Exactly. I love that sentiment. Choosing your hard is, yeah, that's it's a great thing there. It's and definitely something that, yeah, which is, but yeah, exactly what you said. It's hard to be in shape. It's also hard to be out of shape. It's yeah, all those things, exactly. I love the agency involved as well. Because I think that's also where my mindset shifted, is because I may have unintentionally led myself here, but I can intentionally get myself out of here.
That's very powerful. And that is what happens to most people. We were operating on autopilot and we ended up somewhere that isn't isn't a pleasurable or a satisfying place to be. But it's you I wrote this down, you just start because it does you no good to compare your step 1 to someone's step 15, and then you
Yes,
just
exactly.
create you rob yourself of all joy by doing
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Because even if I'm in great shape, there's still going to be someone better shape than me. So what do? I look at them. I see this is the beliefs, the rewiring of how we perceive. I used to look at people and get jealous or be like,
Hmm.
he's probably on steroids or any excuse in the world,
Anything. Yeah, the mind is
anything.
crazy.
And now I can look at someone who is above me and say, he or her definitely committed to that. They didn't get
Yeah.
there by accident. And I know for a fact there's thousands of unseen hours that got them there. And
Hmm.
there's two different the whole outcomes of mind. Did he get lucky? Is he just some bullshit example? Or oh
Yeah.
yeah, I understand.
Yeah, they probably
They
actually did all the work.
exactly.
Yeah, they probably actually did the work. They just didn't tell everyone about it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that is kind of the crazy thing, is once you get into the creative space, that mindset does shift. Once you shift from a consumer of content to a creator of content, that is a powerful mindset paradigm, that you kind of undergo. One, you start seeing potential in everything. There's potential lessons, there's potential parables, or things to think about in different terms or perspectives. But also, you realize how much work goes into it, into the process, and you look at someone who exactly what you said. They're further along than you. They've got more. They've got what you want, and you're not there yet. And so you again, yeah, I think on the other side of the journey, you look at them and like it's easy to be a hater. It's easy to be like, oh, yeah, exactly. They got lucky or they, whatever, exactly what you said. Your mind makes up insane justifications for why somebody else won and you didn't. And so then once you get into it and you start putting in the time, you start putting in the effort and you start getting some of those gains, you start to experience some of those gains yourself, you quickly realize that it's not, they probably didn't get lucky. It takes a long time to become an overnight success for most people. And so you really, and so you respect that process a lot more. And I think it really, because it, you've been down it, you understand it a lot better. And I think that allows you to look objectively at those people ahead of you and gain lessons from them that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to when your ego got in the way. I mean, because the ego, kind of like what you said, that the comparison robs us of the joy. Thief is or comparison is the thief of joy. Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. Once we, our ego prevents us from doing things that could be great, because or it disguises it as keeping us from being embarrassed or you're keeping us from being vulnerable. But our ego gets in the way of so many things, and at all phases, I think, which is the crazy thing, is that I have to constantly figure out how to outsmart the lazy, egotistical side of myself, no matter where I am in life. Kind of like what you said. I thought doing X would give me all the answers. Well, it gives you some answers, but it's only going to give you more questions to go along with it. So I don't know. The continuous journey is amazing, and I can't. I mean, I don't know. It certainly beats the alternative of sitting on the couch back to TikTok, right? I don't know. I don't have all the answers either, but this journey certainly helped me find some of them.
Right. And that's a very transparent point, that we're on a journey. We've gotten better, made significant progress, so much further than we used to be. Still don't have all the answers. Still aware that there's so much more in the unknown than that we know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. I'm completely fine. See, where I am right now, not financially free, not where I want to be, so much more fulfilled and enjoyable of a life than I could have ever imagined from the outside view. If you were to tell my younger self, I have this much money, I look like this, I have this many friends, this is my status, I'd be like, oh, he's not doing well. And and that is just so far from the truth. I am so proud of myself and feel so good about where I am now. And my 18-year-old self was a foolish big ego. That's what my 18-year-old self was. And that whole topic of ego is very interesting. I know that to put out your message, you spoke earlier about it being tough at first to click publish because you're nervous about what people think. And same for everything that I've done. I thought about making a podcast for probably a whole damn year. Like, it was in my, not every day, but it was in my head. Hey, I love listening to podcasts. I feel like I have something to share. Oh, but people will judge me. Oh, I don't have many followers. Oh,
I'm not good enough. All those things.
Millions of limiting beliefs and destructive thoughts. Well, I wish I could give you a magic pill or some magic solution. The simplest piece of advice is you have to start And
Um,
you're not going to know it all when you start. You're not supposed to. You're going to learn through experience. So you get your foot in the door, and you just, as long as you're not wasting a abundance of time, you're reflecting and paying attention to the
mhm,
results, you will make incremental changes, and over time your results are inevitable. But you have to be patient. You have to have a a structure where, let's say we're doing a creative endeavor, some sort of avenue that requires much time and much effort. Well, of course, you still have bills to pay. So you better create some sort of transition plan or have some sort of safety valve that
mhm.
reduces your stress because you've thought about it. I that's a lot, but I think we can end off right around here. Do you have any leaving principles or a message that you want to close out with?
Yeah, I think just in the process of you saying that in terms of getting started, because I think, and I wrote about it a lot through 500 days about the importance of that day one, because day one allowed there to be everything else that came after it. And I didn't know on day one that I was going to get all, or, it's, I've talked a lot about cliches, but I love quotes. And Zig Ziglar's got one I like. He talks about, what you get from achieving your goals is not as important as who you become by achieving your goals.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
that became kind of the overarching theme as I think about writing for 500 days. That's what really sticks out of my mind, is that I became a better version of myself throughout that process. But I didn't expect that. I just thought I was going to write, and, whatever was going to happen. And then what ended up happening was I became a better father, became a better husband, got promoted at my job, got a mid 5-figure raise because of it, which, is great. It made friends from all over the world with amazing people doing amazing things in their lives. It fundamentally changed what I do with my free time. I don't sit in front of I don't, I still do have that downtime, but I don't, spend hours, sitting, sitting there wasting my time and then trying to convince the world that I'm working on the things that matter to me, because the truth is I am now working on those things. And so all those positive benefits that came out of just starting on day one, I never expected. And I mean, I even made money writing. I got paid for, side project writing, stuff like that, which was amazing. I mean, I guess, call yourself professional writer, quote unquote. That's cool to me. I mean, that, again, going back to the ego thing, that's a good ego boost. Like, that's a positive one. But and so all those things came from just, and I wrote about it on my day 500 essay about, do the things, get the courage to do the things that can change all your tomorrows. And that's what that day one was for me. It changed every subsequent day since then. And every subsequent day since then, my life has been richer and more meaningful because of it. And for that purpose, I would say find whatever it is that taps you into the interior aspects of yourself that we tend to neglect, and find out what motivates you and what fires you up and what you want to really accomplish with your life. And then you will magically start to work towards a plan on how to make that happen. But, got to get clear about what you want first, and then have that day one, because life gets exciting from there. I promise you.
See, we mentioned a lot of cliches, and we can end off with one. You increase the quality of your questions and your answers. The quality of your answers will get better. But
Mhm.
everything we've spoke about, it really starts with this awareness that you can get better, and therefore you have to start getting curious about how to get better. That
Yeah.
comes in the forms of questioning yourself. Ask questions And there's no magic pill, but throughout this conversation, we've touched on so many small and bigger shifts that you can make. It's going to take time, but you have the potential to do anything you really want. Like,
Yeah.
and that's what I want the individual to understand, that the bar you set, the standards you have for yourself, that creates your reality. So aim high. Like Bruce Lee
Yeah.
says, if you aim high and miss, it's better than aiming low and hitting that. So
Yeah.
thank you
We
so
live an
much, Danny.
amazing, oh, Justin, it's amazing conversation. I mean, it's amazing to even have conversations like this. We live in an amazing time in human history. And so, I just think it's so cool to, jump on these interwebs, have a motivating conversation. Like I'm about to like kick ass the rest of the day at work because of this talk, man. So, thanks for the invitation. I really appreciate the invite and enjoy the talk, man. If you need anything else, I'm happy to, chat and, best of luck to you.
Thank you, man. I'll stay in touch for sure. I'm glad that you got a good energy. Same for me. Rest of my day will be great. The conversations, you see, when I started, I would have a little bit of butterflies, nervousness before a conversation. Now
Mm-hmm.
I'm about 30 something, about 40 episodes in. I already know every time I end the conversation, I feel so great. And that's why it's like
Mm-hmm.
the creator, the universe just confirming, hey, dude,
Yeah.
this is what you should be doing. So keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. The universe knows, man. It's weird, but the universe knows.
The universe, we have to listen to that. We do.
Hey, it's more there are powerful forces out there we don't understand. Sometimes we got to go with it.
Right. Thanks so much, man.
Awesome, Justin. Thanks for the conversation, man.
Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.